One of the exciting parts about being department chair is the opportunity that I get to meet some of our extraordinary alumni. What always strikes me in my conversations with our graduates is the different directions that their economics degree has taken them. Some have become consultants, financial analysts, and real estate investors. Others have become lawyers, leaders of nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and yes, even academics. In the case of our commencement speaker, Mr. Jason Lamine, his UT degree has served as a springboard to an extremely successful career in the financial industry. I've had the privilege of getting to know Jason through his work on our department's advisory committee, and I'll be joining him in a few weeks for our first ever economics alumni reception in New York City. Jason was born in Sierra Leone and lived there until the age of 13. It was at that point that his family moved to Texas. Jason graduated from Winnsboro High School in East Texas, enrolled at UT in fall of 1993, and graduated with a BA in economics in 1998. During his time at UT, he was a proud member of the Texas Cowboys. After college, Jason began a career at Merrill Lynch, where he quickly moved up the ranks. He started in investment banking, working on M&A transactions, and then helped launch a startup group in London focused on deepening the company's most lucrative client relationships. Eventually, he became a director of their fixed income structured credit group in New York. In 2009, Jason started his own company, Lenox Park, as he saw the growing need within investment management for a company that would do independent, conflict-free advisory work. The company has offices in Austin and New York, and its clients include pension funds, foundations, and family office groups. Despite all his successes in business, Jason has never forgotten his roots nor the importance of giving back. In 2008, he founded the Niawa Funding Group, a nonprofit organization with a mission to improve living standards in Sierra Leone. Now living in Harlem, Jason is an active volunteer and mentor in his community. He is also an active member of the UN Private Sector Forum, the World Policy Institute, and the Carnegie Council for Ethics in International Affairs. From his work in the financial world to his philanthropy and service, Jason embodies the type of entrepreneurship, humanity, and worldly thinking that we hope to instill in our economics students with their liberal arts education. It is my true honor to introduce Mr. Jason Lamine as today's keynote speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Abrevaya, for that very, very kind introduction. And good job pronouncing Nyawa. Not many Americans can do that. When I was preparing my remarks, it occurred to me that perhaps I was asked to speak with all of you this morning because I'm on this journey and some might actually find my story somewhat interesting. And maybe I've had some checkpoints of success along the way. So I want to thank you very much for including me in this very, very special club. I'm simply humbled to be standing here today in front of all of you. So I'd like to tell you a story. It's my story, and I think I get to do that. I can just stand here and tell you what I'd like to. And it's a story that revolves around a simple yet brilliant word, yes. And in doing so, I hope to share with all of you graduates here in the front and you grandparents and uncles, aunts, cousins, loved ones, special friends, pets. I think I saw a dog back there. This is Austin, Texas, keeping it weird. So I hope to share with you what that very powerful word yes has meant for me in my life. I also want to share with you why the best may be yet to come for all of you. And intertwined in this story, I hope you'll take away some practical advice, because I suppose that's sort of the whole point of this. So I do want to spend some time, though, talking about the power of yes and what that's meant for me in my life. As humans, we have this basic instinct to survive. We shield and protect our vulnerabilities from exposure or danger or fear, failure. We instinctively protect ourselves and we protect the ones that we love. We erect these great big walls of perceived safety and perceived stability around us. We neutralize our risk-taking. And our culture really seems to reinforce this. We say no to the job because it's too far away. We say no to the job because it's too risky. We turn away from our passions because somehow following our passions has been made to feel frivolous or irresponsible. We say no to love, and we do it for too many reasons, some of which are rooted in ideas that are centuries behind us. I'd like to ask each of you here, you graduates, to consider, at least for the time we're here this morning, what life beyond those false boundaries could be like for you. Let's move past just this instinct to survive. The late Maya Angelou said, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive." So I hope to share with you this morning that by saying that simple yet brilliant word, yes, one can dismantle brick by brick the walls that we've built around ourselves and thrive. And importantly, by saying yes, we may also turn the tide and provide a current for someone else to thrive. So my story begins right here in Austin on this beautiful University of Texas campus in the late 60s when my mother and her best friend Marilyn and Marilyn's husband JB all said yes when accepted to this great university. They navigated through these buildings, the six-pack, the Union, the drag, and nobody likes to think of their mother on 6th Street. But I am sure there was some 6th Street action. Marilyn and JB are very much like parents to me, and they live right here in Austin. When my mother graduated from the University of Texas in 1969, she answered the calling from President John F. Kennedy to join the Peace Corps volunteers, to go out beyond the borders of our country, explore developing countries, and to gain a greater sense of appreciation and deeper sensibilities about life and cultures beyond our borders. When she was invited to join the Peace Corps volunteers, this young, brave woman, my mother, from a middle-class East Texas white family, said yes, and she moved to the northern mountains of Sierra Leone into a very small village. Mud huts, that type of village. On the other side of the world, a young man named Murray became the first person from his village in Sierra Leone to not only attend university, but to graduate from one when he earned a Bachelor of Science, Agricultural Science degree in 1969 from the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand. When he returned to Sierra Leone to work in the Ministry of Agriculture, he was promptly assigned to the same village in the northern mountains of Sierra Leone. And that's where Murray met Marilyn. Sort of like that movie When Harry Met Sally, which you guys might all be, except there were no paved roads, actually, it wasn't like that movie. But that's where my parents met, in that small village, Kabbalah. And when my dad asked my mother to marry him, she said yes. My brother and I were born there, and I lived there until I was 13. A confluence of real-life matters led my parents to jointly make a very difficult decision to separate. And for the benefit of her boys, 20 years after she'd moved there, my mother moved back here to Texas with my younger brother Jeremy and me in tow. Now, while my father staying behind was a difficult reality for all of us, it's now clear to me that that outcome ensured that we would always have firm roots in Sierra Leone. Unfortunately, my father died a little under 2 years ago. And his legacy is one of honesty, family, and pride in his heritage. In fact, as Jason alluded to, my friends and family and I run a smaller foundation, the Nyawa Funding Group, where we give back to Sierra Leone and we reach back and offer hope. Now, in 1987, when my mother suggested that we would be moving to America to my brother and me, you have to appreciate the glitz and glamour of what that feels like to small children in Africa. This is America. Honey Nut Cheerios, M&Ms, endless television, video games. This was fantastic. We said hell yes. except we didn't say hell because my mother would literally wash our mouths out with soap. We did not say hell. It was a very polite and simple yes. But we did say yes. But our move and the adjustment to America was not all fun and games. And in my adulthood, I can now appreciate the complexities lost on a 13-year-old. You see, not everyone had been as welcoming or open to some of the choices my mother had made, like marrying a Sierra Leonean and living in West Africa for 20 years. It wasn't certain that she was going to be welcomed back with open arms. But most of my family did. Marilyn and JB, my wonderful Aunt Margaret, my Uncle Charlie, my Uncle John, their families, their children, they all said yes. They said yes and embraced two biracial boys in circumstances that I can now appreciate complicated. And when we settled into Texas, we attended the same high school that my mother attended in Winnsboro, Texas. City population 3,000. I'm going to pause for a moment and let that all sink in. Two biracial boys with funny Afro-English accents and their white Peace Corps volunteer mother moved to town. Let that sink in. Let's just say not everyone said yes. But yet, in this small East Texas town, many open-minded and wonderful people did say yes. Of course, the fact that my brother and I were quite good in sports had some advantages. It appears in this great state of Texas, if you can run the ball or shoot the ball, well, you can reap all the rewards of high school, win hearts, date cheerleaders, circumvent some homework, and conquer the world. But I have to believe that even then, in high school, I started to realize that for every no I heard, there were stronger and louder yeses. I have one particular memory when I said yes to a high school friend of mine who asked if he could talk to me about something important. Through tears, we talked about his confusion and frustration about his own sense of racial identity. You see, his mother was white, and the father he had no relationship with, and I don't believe he'd ever met, was Hispanic. He was so angry and had grown up channeling that anger in the direction of race, and it felt hateful, and it was hurtful to him, I could tell. I regrettably lost touch with my friend, but a little over a year ago, almost 25 years later, I received this email from him, and I'd like to read part of it to you. Jason, I saw your post in regards to your closing remarks at the United Nations. I felt the need to reach out and let you know how proud I am of who you've become. You may never truly realize the impact you had on my life in teaching me about people. Quote, we are all people, man, unquote. Those were your words when we were sitting in your Honda in front of Brookshire's when you and I were discussing my biological father and ethnicity. Those words have stuck with me and allowed me to become successful in my career path and as a leader at my company. So I want to thank you for being part of me and who I am. Jason, I wish you nothing but the best and appreciate the work you're doing for people. Now, I've thought a lot since receiving that email about all the things that could have prevented that conversation and the series of yeses that paved the way for us to be sitting right there in that parking lot in Winnsboro, Texas, to have that conversation with my friend. And after receiving that email from him 25 years later, I'm so glad I said yes, because that conversation obviously had a profound effect on both of us. I graduated from Winnsboro High School in 1993, and upon being offered a place at this university where my mother and JB and Marilyn had attended 25 years before me, I said an enthusiastic yes, and I moved into the Jester dorms right there. Yes, Jester is that old. On the very first day I arrived at UT, I met one of my very best friends in the world today, Raj. He was my resident assistant. And the following year, when Raj asked if I would be randomly paired with a roommate in room 904, I said yes, and I was randomly paired with a guy that my daughter now calls Uncle Israel. That same year, my brother was called to be a Texas Longhorn, and he said yes. And he was offered a place on the basketball team here at the University of Texas as a walk-on, and he said yes. Look, admittedly, some of these yeses are no-brainers. So, some of them are, but stick with me. And while Jeremy was here, he met a beautiful woman on UT's softball team, Katie. And a side note about Katie, Katie was Jeremy's basketball coach's niece, and he was dating her, and he was getting no playing time. correlation. I'm just saying. The two of them fell in love, and some years later, I happened to be with them on the coast of Italy in a small village when Katie said yes to Jeremy's marriage proposal. They now live here in Austin with their two smart-spirited girls, Olivia and Chloe, and the eyes of Texas are upon them. Yes did very good things for them, too. As I look back now, I realize the power of yes has been in front of me my whole life. And when Jeremy and I were teenagers showing signs of reasonable basketball potential, JB asked if we'd like to attend the University of Texas basketball camp. And we said yes. And right here in Gregory Gym, under baskets that are not here for some reason, but right here in Gregory Gym, we refined our dribbling and shooting skills, and we met one of our very best friends, Jamond. He's a Texas Longhorn, too. In my money and banking class and economics class, right there at the Department of Economics, a well-dressed, super bright fellow econ major from Ghana was sitting right next to me and asked if we would share notes and study together, and I said yes, and Felix is one of my best friends today. The relationships you've made at this university will last a lifetime and will pay benefits that you have yet to comprehend. In 1998, I proudly sat where you are today, and with my economics degree in hand, when Merrill Lynch offered me a job to work in their investment banking division in New York, I said an enthusiastic yes. At Merrill Lynch, I continued with my intentional design of a life where saying yes would lead to broad definitions of success and open exciting doors of opportunity and set my life on a path of discovery and purpose. I soaked up New York City. I went to comedy clubs, jazz clubs, museums, Central Park. I saw Prince at Madison Square Garden, rest his purple soul. I worked hard as a financial analyst, took in the valuable training and experience, built some extraordinary professional relationships, and applied my liberal arts degree in ways that differentiated me from others, especially my economics degree. Interpretive abilities, nonlinear thinking, and complex problem solving. I took great pride when working on some of the largest M&A transactions, meeting CEOs and CFOs of household name companies. And when the deals that I worked on made the front page of the Wall Street Journal, I basked in the light with pride. And then I took in a fair dose of humility when the headlines weren't so favorable to me or to the firm that I work for. On your very dark days, it will be hard to say yes and come into the light. And yet those are precisely the times when you must find the strength and courage to say yes. After 2 years in New York, I was offered an opportunity to go and work in Merrill Lynch's London office. I very quickly said yes, one of those no-brainer things. A year turned into 2, into 3, into 4, working with people from all backgrounds across Europe. This college and its diverse student population prepared me for working in a multicultural environment and a globalizing economy. London, Europe. I was finally going to exercise my passion for travel. Less than 72 hours after landing for assignment in London, I hopped on a train and headed south and cut through the English Channel. And by 9 p.m., I was sitting on the Champs-Élysées in La Ville Lumière, Paris, having dinner with some friends. I couldn't believe I was there. A few months later, I drove up through the English moors, scenery I'd only imagined while paging through Sherlock Holmes novels. We ended up in Edinburgh, Scotland. Museums in Madrid, a Guinness in Dublin, paella in Barcelona, sailing through the Croatian islands, coffee shops in Amsterdam, only tea, of course. And I even fell in love in Italy, and not just with its food and wine. But my story hasn't always been sunshine, making great friends, travel, and limited buckets of yes. There have been some no's along the way. As the economy was imploding in 2008, I'd been at Merrill Lynch for 10 years, and it became clear to me that the world of investment banking would be very different going forward. A series of things created a window for me to turn in my bull and my bear cufflinks and pursue a different path, perhaps one with a broader definition of success, entrepreneurship. In 2009, I started a fintech company, Lenox Park. For those of you, fintech is just a glamorous way of saying a technology company that offers solutions in finance. In building Lenox Park, I've reached back time and time again to the skill set that was afforded to me right there in the Department of Economics. Complex problem solving, building financial models, forecasting, making projections. At my company, we've been very intentional about things that fit our definition of success. We've been intentional about cultivating a culture that is inclusive, a culture that not only values diversity but embraces it. We're mindful of the voice and reach we have in the investment management industry that needs more diversity. We're saying yes to women, people of color, people from culturally different backgrounds, and people that are often too often missing from American success stories. I'd like to ask all of you to challenge you as you go into the next chapter and you find yourselves in positions of influence. Say yes to them too. Be on the side of women who add equally to our classrooms, soccer fields, basketball courts, and should be much more visible in our management teams and boardrooms. You may accomplish much in your lives, I'm sure you will, but the successes that are beyond measure are those that result in an uptick in humanity. Our humanity depends on that. The world we live in today faces challenges that are going to require exactly what you all have to offer. Some of you will work to provide understanding and perhaps even prevent some of the horrible tragedies like what we witnessed in San Bernardino, Paris, Brussels, Pakistan, Nigeria. Non-linear, big picture thinking and complex problem solving. There will also be challenges that feel less serious, but they raise questions about who we are becoming as people. I worry about that. I worry that as a culture we are experiencing an empathy deficit and what feels like overwhelming self-interest or narcissism with all these selfies. Excuse me for 1 second. I have to do this, and I'm going to do it. Could all of you actually just please stand up right here, please, right here, and put your horns up. Put your horns up, and look like you're having an amazing time, please. That is going to be good, and it's going on my Instagram page. Hashtag you only live once. Hashtag hook 'em. I'm sorry about that. To the parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts and loved ones in the room, congratulations. And thank you for supporting your children as they've acquired this prestigious degree. I'm supremely confident that they will make all of us very proud with what they'll accomplish. But at a minimum, know this. These are the ones that are more likely to go out and acquire the experiences that will make them the most interesting person in almost any room they choose to walk into. These are the minds that will contemplate our current, oftentimes frightening geopolitical climate. They'll write public policy. They'll provide valuable, smart context on the economic outlook of our country. They'll write books and undertake groundbreaking research. Some of them are already doing that. They'll start firms or join a cause that really matters for humanity. And if you're lucky, they'll also be able to firsthand describe the serenity of watching a foggy sunrise in some faraway land. Every single one of them is here today because of the series of yeses that you said along the way. So thank you. And to you graduates, I'll leave you with a few brief, but I hope salient thoughts. Travel. Feel naked without your passport. Find your way to places in this vast, beautiful world where you feel lost, or you don't speak the language, and you must rely on your basic human instinct to connect with people. Love and invest in your family. If you're lucky enough to have your mom and dad, know this, you will turn more toward them as you get older, and you'll wonder why you waited so long. You'll inevitably need them, and if you've refined your character enough, if and when they need you, you'll be there for them. And by family, I mean the one you're born into, but I also mean the ones you'll accumulate over your lifetime. Most of my family here today chose me, and I chose them. We weren't born related, but we are now. Define what success means to you. When I think of the people that I've admired and found to have the types of success that I aspire to, it's the people that have a manic desire to make something happen. Those who never stop. They're never complacent. They're unsettled by normal experiences. They never arrive. They keep moving, looking to achieve and learn and give. They ask why, and when they find out why, they ask what they can do about it. But this is your script. You get to decide what success means to you. Say yes, and say yes often, because yes can open up the world to you. And by designing your lives in such a way, you can expect a very rich, rewarding, interesting, and fulfilling collection of experiences. I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that you always say yes. Trust me, I have a daughter. She's only 3, but she's quite clever, and I have to say no to her a lot, especially when it comes to play dates with boys. In fact, in 10 years, if I'm here again, you'll hear me talk about Second Amendment rights and the power of saying no. Thank you all so much. Congratulations, class of 2016. Hook 'em horns.